Welcome to Minus 20, the journey of an independent food business.
Hi folks, I'm Walter. This is Keith.
Hi.
And episode 1, I thought, you know what, why don't we talk about the beginnings of how all of this even got started, right?
Yes.
So why don't we start out, you started out in the music industry.
I did.
What was that all about?
Went to college in 1991. Met a couple of guys who...
Couple of guys.
Who I befriended. I wanted to be a DJ at the college radio station. So it wasn't much. It was just a, how do they call it, closed circuit TV. It was, on the closed circuit TV channel in the 90s, dorm rooms.
Yeah, we had closed circuit.
Really,
really high end.
lame, and no one listened to it.
Right.
But they had support from a very talented professor who counseled and coached them through starting an FM radio station. And so I was the first program director of that FM radio station.
I can totally see that. Can you see that? I can totally see that.
And spent most of my time in like old closets in the student union, just pouring through old vinyl, and then helping out. I didn't know much about electronics or the studio side of things, but was so ravenously into tunes.
That's cool.
Volunteered my time and became a college program director at the radio station, and very proud of that experience. Taught me a lot about managing people. We had 100 plus DJs 24/7. I would stay up at college in the summertime and be on the airwaves, and I have a rebel streak. We had an NPR station on campus, and I delighted in towing the line, and at
how far can I go?
Yeah, 10 p.m. and 1 second would say fuck, just to do it.
First podcast, not even 5 minutes in.
Yeah. I will, use expletives from time to time.
That's okay.
Part New York, part punk rocker. And so had the time of my life. Then left college, went into the promotion side of the record industry, and I just simply didn't like it. It just felt kind of pay to play, very inauthentic. I was a jaded kid. And just decided I don't know what the hell I want to do with my life. Yeah. And tail between my legs, went back up to college.
Okay.
And instead of going to class, I got a job as a waiter. And then spent the lion's share of my time watching cooking shows in the afternoon.
Oh man! What did you say it was 90s?
Yeah, 90s. So you had the Learning Channel, you had the Discovery Channel, you had Julia Child, you had the Frugal Gourmet.
The Frugal Gourmet.
Who may or may not.
Well, we won't go there.
Yeah, we'll let it go. We didn't have Food Network then.
That's true. Yeah, it hadn't started yet. Yeah.
So.
Wow. So, and then
PBS, the Great Chefs of the World. Remember that one?
I remember Wolfgang Puck cooking with Julia Child. I remember that little series.
So, Great Chefs of the World was just like one camera in the kitchen with a chef with no personality, just making a dish with a really boring voiceover going, Chef Stephen will make the blah, blah, blah. And he's putting the asparagus on the plate. And I would watch it. And cannabis was not legal nor available at that time. So something must have been wrong with me, because I would just watch hour after hour after hour. And became a cook and moved down here in '94 to Atlanta.
Wow.
Went to culinary school, became a chef.
Wow. So you're a chef. So you finished culinary school. So what's the progression after you get out of culinary school and before we start High Road? What's kind of like that? What's that little progression in there? Did you go from like a line chef to executive chef, or what did you do?
Yeah, it was very sort of classic, traditional school of hard knocks route. One of the things I look back and laugh at is when our culinary school gave out a most outstanding student award, but I'm also a complete goofball. So at graduation for culinary school, I was talking and joking the entire graduation. And when they announced my name as most outstanding student, I didn't hear it. So it was this really, really awkward pause.
It's really not a surprise for anybody who actually knows Keith that would have happened. He missed his own graduation.
I missed my own award, but eventually got up there. And then I actually had to look at the award. What I won, I was just dead to walk across the stage.
Why do I have a lamp in my hand? It's a major award. Okay.
Yeah,
my gosh, that's
fun
hysterical.
reflection was very, very, very happy with
most
that.
outstanding person who doesn't listen, apparently.
Yes.
Is what it was. Wow.
So, so worked at a place was pretty posh in Atlanta called Nikolai's Roof at the time, which was a hot spot in the 80s and 90s.
Okay.
Worked for a gentleman who has since passed away, but is a deeply regarded French chef, master chef, was a sous chef de Paul Bocuse in Lyon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was a big deal. His name is Jean Blanchet, and owned restaurants in Chicago, Atlanta. He may or may not have done something in Florida late in his career, I'm not sure.
Wow.
Again, he's since passed away, but every year in Chicago, the big chef awards are the Blanchet Awards.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, yep. And he was one of, he's old school, old school. He was a playboy, the best cook I've ever seen and probably ever will see. So very blessed and lucky to have worked for Chef Blanchet.
So your career is progressing.
Yeah.
I know. Then you become an executive chef, right?
I did.
And you're running a team.
Yes. So I've done. I like to have a broad swath of experiences. So I've worked in the restaurant space. I've worked in a very high-end boutique catering. I've worked in casinos. I've worked in resorts. I've worked in hotels. It gave me a pretty nice, broad culinary background. And, after 9/11, moved the family up to Burlington, Vermont, and I was the executive chef of a New England Culinary Institute, the Burlington campus, for a while. Wow. It was a lot of fun.
And that's actually where you crossed paths with Alton Brown for the first time, wasn't it?
Yes. In fact, the first time I ever met Alton Brown, he was the guest speaker for graduation for the students, and I had just been promoted to executive sous chef of the campus. I didn't really know much of him at the time, so I was supposed to.
A while back, yeah.
Yeah, I was supposed to receive him, and I had plans. We should take the guest speaker out to dinner.
Yeah.
And so, he came in. He was like, "I really don't want to go out to dinner." I said, "Man, I was just going to have you for a burger and a beer. I'm not doing anything fancy with you. I'm tired." So, we met for the first time there, and then later on, he was kind enough to have me on his podcast.
That's awesome.
Probably 2011, 2012, yeah.
A little 1 degree of separation, because I actually worked on Good Eats for a couple of seasons. So.
And Walter did a lot of the, all of the animations, yes?
Most of them, seasons 9 through 12. Did the editing, color grading, all that stuff.
No big deal, just the coolest cooking show ever.
Okay, so at some point here, are you going to business school while you're a chef, or when does business school come into play?
So I think it was about 2003, 2004.
Okay.
I had this lingering, irritation that I had dropped out of college my junior year and not finished. So I had I was working on a broadcasting degree.
Okay.
And probably could have, cobbled together some kind of general studies thing and finished up real fast. But became very, very interested in business and decided effectively to start from scratch.
Okay.
And went to State University in New York school for called Empire State College.
Okay.
And had a wonderful experience there and finished my degree in business management and economics.
Okay.
Became really interested and never thought I would be in economics, behavioral economics, organizational behavior, anything behavioral, sort of the human side of business and how to engage people to get them to be their very best or to collaborate and create great teams was really intriguing to me. I had grown up with a dad who was a football coach.
Oh, wow.
And and multi-sport coach actually, and watched championship athletic moments and thought, I'm probably wired to be very similar. Here I am in business though. How do I create championship business moments? And that became my thing. Ultimately finished my bachelor's degree, I think sometime in 2006 I ended up finishing up. And then had the bug to go get my MBA. Started that in 2008, finished in 2010, started High Road in 2010, basically around the same time we graduated from
master's, too much school for me. Too much school.
It was hard.
So, I think it's interesting that you made the transition. You were a chef, and then you transitioned on into business. How important do you think for like any chef who's watching this right now and saying, okay, I want to open my own restaurant, my own business, whatever it is. I mean, how much business do they need to get like a full business degree, or like what types of things should they be thinking about if they want to take that step and run their own place?
At the very least, I would advocate to take courses like ones that are titled Finance for Non-Finance Professionals, to really gain an understanding of how to manage cash flow, be in a cohort with people and professors who could talk a lot about what could go wrong, risk mitigation. Chefs are creative types generally. And anybody who's getting into their own business typically has some kind of irrational optimism about themselves, and so can end up tripping themselves up quite a bit if they don't balance out and gain some skills relative to the art of pragmatism. If you don't know how to check yourself, chances are you'll just bleed yourself out of cash.
Really?
Yes.
And how much, like, you haven't, did you ever actually open a restaurant? Like
Yes.
actually start one?
Yeah.
So how much time do you have, say, from that time you open the doors until you're going to bleed out of cash? Like, how much time do you have to, like, really get this thing right, or you're going to screw up?
It depends. If you bootstrap it, it might be night one. You might be out of money as you're serving your first meals, right? That's not uncommon, by the way. Yeah, it's not uncommon for small mom and pop restaurateurs to put most of what they have into the infrastructure, turn the lights on, and swipe some credit cards for the first few days worth of ingredients and material. So, on the flip side, there are investment firms that will put a couple of $1 million into a startup. There are family offices out there who may have generated wealth in the restaurant business and so are not afraid to invest in the restaurant world. On the food side of things, there's no shortage of startup, incubator, private equity type money, and also family office money that's available to entrepreneurs with the right approach, the right concept, the right audience, and the right product mix.
Okay. Very good. So, and we'll put some information in the body of the copy of what kind of classes that you might want to look at if you are considering.
I like the Udemy, edX.
Okay.
Is very good. There are a number. MIT has open courseware, so you could go out there and get the materials from a lot of business schools around the country for minimal money to free. And LinkedIn bought lynda.com.
They did.
And they've since expanded the scope of the education that they offer. So, doing a basic course in financial modeling actually matters. I think too often entrepreneurs rely on what the accountants or the finance guys tell them, but they don't quite understand the language. You need to understand the language.
Wow. Okay. And
Have to.
One thing I never did, I was an entrepreneur, but I never actually took business courses, so I was actually learning from him on the back end of my business. So.
And I'm a solid C-, so I apologize in advance.
So what's really interesting is, so when you went to get your master's, basically your final project, your thesis project, whatever you want to call it, was a business proposal, right? You had to put together a business plan.
Yes.
And interestingly enough, you chose an ice cream company. Why did you decide to build a business plan for an ice cream company?
So if you recall, 2008, 2009 was the worst economic downturn of our lifetime. 100%. It was a crisis beyond crises, right? And so I was in the hotel world at that time, and the capital had simply dried up. and companies were trying to preserve cash any way they possibly could and didn't have access to cash.
Okay.
And one of the ways hotels will save cash is to have chefs and culinary departments reduce their labor force. And so as the labor forces started to contract, chefs still had to prepare food for the guests in the hotels.
Oh, sure.
There became a significant demand for better quality, convenience foods, right? So you didn't have a pastry chef anymore. You had to find a way to buy a good cake or a good tart or a good tart shell.
Okay.
The food service industry was really limited to mainstream brands like Blue Bunny or private label products, or Haagen-Dazs on the more premium end, but brands like Haagen-Dazs didn't really have a nice portfolio of flavors for the culinary community. So we thought that we could step in and provide more interesting products in a more appropriate pack size for the culinary audience here in the Southeast. There was one player at the time, a company that we've since acquired, that we felt made a strategic misstep. It was Ciao Bella Gelato. And Ciao Bella was really a leader amongst the culinary community. The original founders of the business did a beautiful job connecting with the chefs and restaurateurs up in the Northeast to create a really beautiful base of business, and then grew into specialty retail from there. And they had success on the Oprah Winfrey show with this blood orange sorbet pint. And so, private equity came in, pounced on it, and went, "You're going to be the next big thing. We're going to sell 1 billion pints of, blood orange sorbet." And they kind of just slowly de-emphasized their position in food service, and we saw it as an opportunity. Number one, there was a time where a sort of, classic red sauce Italian or Southern Italian fare was the de facto nice night out in the United States of America, but that had evolved, diversified, and changed. And we were riding a time where casual became more important because it was during this economic downturn. It wasn't so cool to be ostentatious or showy, right? And so casual fare started to percolate. And Southern fare, which has been rootsy and historically quite casual, sort of came into the spotlight during that time. So High Road and its Southern roots really overtook Ciao Bella, which had kind of dated itself at that time and required some reinvention.
Okay, so you basically saw an opening.
That's right.
And so now you did a business plan. You actually ended up winning some awards on this thing, right?
We did. I think we did 3 or 4 Shark Tank style competitions. Came in second in the first one that we did, refined our pitch, won a statewide competition, got invited to an international competition at the University of Nebraska back in, I think it was March of 2010, and won the graduate school segment of what was at the time called the International New Ventures Competition. And we won some seed capital too.
He goes from a chef, he takes business courses, he gets an MBA, and then he comes up with an award-winning business plan.
Yes.
So naturally,
You're right.
Almost a natural step. You've got this award-winning business plan.
You start the business.
Did you ever think you were actually going to open it, or did you just think this is a really cool business plan?
Well, I credit a guy named Gary Roberts. He was a professor of entrepreneurship at Kennesaw State University. And all of the cohorts in the MBA program were asked to present 3 or 4 slides to it was a concept pitch first before you did your formal business plan to a panel.
Sure.
And so we pitched 7th of 8 groups that day who were getting skewered by the professional panel. It was like a PE guy and a business attorney, a few professors who had entrepreneurial experience, and they were just kicking the crap out of all these poor teams. And I thought, my God, here I am, the only chef in the class with the dumbest business plan, as a juvenile, idea at best. Everyone else is trying to cure cancer, and I'm trying to make more ice cream than the 17,000 ice cream companies. And got up and said, here's this poor chef. He doesn't have any staff anymore. Here's why. Here's this beautiful ice cream. We don't have any competition, and we have 10 customers lined up. Thanks. We had no words on our slides. It was just pictures of chefs in their environment.
Oh.
Boom, 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 boom.
Okay.
And really spoke to the pain point that the chefs were experiencing.
Okay.
And Gary Roberts got up, stood up, turned back to the rest of the classroom. He said, now this is a business.
Oh, wow.
And I was not aware of that at the time.
You didn't know you actually had
No,
a business.
I didn't.
You just thought
You
it was
know.
kind of cool.
I thought I could pull it off here in Atlanta, but I didn't know how scalable it was, to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
Yeah. So, so it's one thing to create an award-winning business plan. Everybody's like, hey, that's a great business. Yeah. So just not going into great detail, but I'm sure there's people out there who would like to know a little bit about, well, how did it go from paper, now I got to get funding, I got to find a commercial space, I got to get ingredient. How did you, because you had never done this before, you'd never started like...
Nothing like this,
like
no.
a commercial business. You started a restaurant.
Yeah.
So how, like maybe just a Cliff Notes version, how did you take it from paper, figure it all out? How did you find a space? How did you get funding? How did you get equipment?
Yeah, the Cliff Notes version is that there was a colleague in my MBA program.
Okay.
His name is Deepak.
Okay.
Who came to me and said, I really think you should do this. And I had been working so hard as a chef. I really didn't know much about capital or raising money or how to raise money. I didn't know the laws behind it. We kind of, glossed over private equity and raising money during the MBA program, but I was a novice at best.
Sure.
And so this guy said, I believe in you. I believe in this. And I want you to talk to a couple of my friends, and I think we can round up sufficient capital to get you started. And went with my business plan to his house one Saturday or Sunday morning, met a couple of guys, had a lovely conversation with them, and they were kind enough to cobble together what amounted to be about $250,000 to help us start High Road. And we opened in the old Focus Brands Church's Chicken Research and Development Facility in Chamblee. That's now somebody's townhome. Someone lives in Old High Road.
Yeah, somebody lived. They actually tore the building down. Okay,
Yeah.
but we'll get to that next episode. But, yeah.
And we were able to renovate for about $40,000 the interior. That's all it cost. We just bought basically some paneling and adhesive to put the wash down walls on.
Yeah.
Cleaned all the sinks that were already there. It was just like this abandoned fried chicken development.
And it still had a little bit of that fried chicken smell when you walked into one side of the building. Yeah.
A lot of elbow grease, and we bought one hardening cabinet, a master-built hardening cabinet, the ones you'd see in the old homemade ice cream shops.
Yeah.
And then one Emery Thompson batch freezer, a 24-quart batch freezer, and some plastic wash-down shelving to put the ingredients on, and a stainless steel table that I had in my garage. That was High Road.
So it's about $250,000 in to get it up and going.
Yeah.
Wow. And
Less than a typical house in Cobb County.
well, I mean, certainly less than most businesses.
Yes.
I mean, just to
Yes.
go ahead and get something like an actual commercial enterprise
Yeah.
going. Now, did you already have like a couple of clients lined
We
up
did.
before you? So,
We did.
So you really did?
We really did. Yep.
Wow.
Fellow chefs in the community. I mean, people like Matt Swickerath at Valenza, word of mouth restaurant group there, took care of us since day one. Our good friends at Gourmet Foods International placed a bet on us right away. Southern Foods, which was acquired by Cheney Brothers in the early days, placed a bet on us very early. South City Kitchen, who is a customer to this day, was our first and 1,000th invoice.
Oh, wow.
That was really cool because
That's kinda cool.
and I was still the CFO when we printed out invoice 1,000. That's why I know that. I was like, oh, look at that. And
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Wow. So any advice for just some brief advice for chefs that if they have a business plan, they've run it through some people, it looks pretty solid. Do they need to find a friend like yours, or are there more avenues today where maybe they might explore to get some of that initial funding that where they might start looking?
Yes, I think there are more avenues today. There are a number of incubators across the country, I would start there. We got a ton of help from the Small Business Development Center, which is typically state funded but supported by the SBA, Small Business Administration. The SBDC here in Georgia is fabulous.
It is. I've actually used them. Yeah.
Fabulous. And go deep for you, work super, super hard. They'll help you export, they'll help you work through your idea, they'll help connect you to early sources of seed capital or lending. You have to get out there and be really passionate about your concept and be willing to hear hard and fast feedback about what's wrong with your concept. I've seen a lot of food entrepreneurs here in the state of Georgia who are very stubborn about their concept and so don't grow at the rate that they could because they get attached to their original idea. I think one of the things about being an entrepreneur is it's about the customer and about this kind of tenacity that you need as an individual to figure out what your business will be someday. Right, so I never quite cared whether or not High Road ended up as an ice cream company or a fried chicken company or a widget company. And I knew I wanted to do something in food, and that's where my natural expertise lies, but I suspect that High Road will be much more than an ice cream company as we endure.
Sure. So just to recap, you started out in the music industry, ended up watching a lot of cooking shows, went to culinary school, became a chef, and most importantly, you then decided to take some business classes so you'd understand the finance and business side. Actually, the ice cream company was a school project, if you will, that turned into reality.
Correct.
And so we're going to leave this podcast with High Road in the original building.
Oh, cool.
Food service only. And then we'll pick up in the next episode. We'll talk a little bit about expansion and growing the company.
Cool.
So thanks, Keith. That's episode 1.
Thanks, Walter. Thanks, all.
Thanks for joining us here on Minus 20.